Hi, I'm AJ Finn, author of The Woman in the Window. This is a psychological thriller, a sort of Hitchcock's Rear Window for the 21st century. Our agoraphobic narrator, once a respected child psychologist, is now housebound, and so she spends her days spying on her neighbors. One night she believes she witnesses a crime in the house across the park, but can't set foot outside to investigate, nor can she persuade anyone, including the police, to believe her. But is the danger real or imagined? That's what you have to find out. So I'm here at the Waterstones on Tottenham Court Road, and I'd like to talk to you about a few of my favorite books, starting with this one, Case Histories by Kate Atkinson. One of the things I love so much about crime fiction is that sometimes, not always, not often, but sometimes, you can experience and enjoy a crime novel on two levels. You can savor the twists and turns of the story. Scratch the surface, though, and you're exposed to something more resonant, something deeper. And no one pulls this off quite like Kate Atkinson, who got her start as a so-called literary novelist, winning what was then the Whitbread, but then turned her hand to detective fiction. This is a dazzlingly well-plotted mystery, but more than that, it's packed with characters who are textured, who are three-dimensional. I still think about them 10, 12 years having read this book. So I couldn't recommend this one more highly, and it's actually been quite formative for me as a writer. So my next selection is Howard's End by E.M. Forster. This is one of the most humane novels I've ever read by one of the most humane novelists who ever wrote. It's very English in certain senses, and yet it's so accessible that even I, as an American, can appreciate its nuances and its comments on caste and class in Edwardian England. It's also very funny. But above all, as I mentioned earlier, it is humane. It is a compassionate novel, and its credo, which has been immortalized ever since, is only connect. Forster is urging his readers to reach out to and feel sympathy for those who are different from them. I love this book. It makes me laugh. It makes me cry, as stereotypical as that sounds. So I spoke earlier about how Kate Atkinson can bridge the gap between literary fiction and suspense. Another author who does this beautifully, brilliantly even, is Tana French. This is the first novel in her series featuring the Dublin Murder Squad. And what's novel about this series is that each book is narrated by a different character. She rotates her narrators, so you get a sort of 360-degree view of this unit. The prose is absolutely dazzling. You've never read sentences so sculpted and so pyrotechnic in a crime novel before. This book is somewhat controversial. This is the first in her series in that it ends, I won't say how it ends, but it ends on a note that some people find dissatisfying. I think it is perfect. I think it is the only ending for this book. In order to discover what it is, you need to read it, and then you'll want to read all of her books. So I came over to the UK quite a few years ago for my PhD at Oxford, and the subject of my PhD thesis was this lady, Patricia Highsmith, whose first Ripley novel, adapted very famously in 1999 as The Talented Mr. Ripley with Matt Damon, is one of the greatest crime novels ever written. It's followed by 4 sequels of varying quality. One of them is pretty bad, the last one, skip it. This one, though, is marvelous. It evokes 50s Italy. It evokes the jazz scene. But most of all, it speaks poignantly to the difficulty that someone without a conscience has in relating to others. What's so persuasive about this novel, what's so disturbing about it, is how Highsmith gets us to root for a serial killer, which is what Tom Ripley is. Traditionally, crime fiction has been about moral education. When we start a Sherlock Holmes story, we know that by the end, the guilty will be punished, the virtuous rewarded or redeemed, and order and justice upheld and restored. Not so in Highsmith, and that's what makes her work so addictive and so, again, disturbing. So this is one of the stranger novels I've read. I don't know whether to call it a psychological thriller, or a period piece, or a drama, or even a fantasy. It's Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan Lindsay, which was adapted very famously by Peter Weir, the Australian filmmaker, in the 70s, and I think there's a recent TV remake as well. It's the story of a group of schoolgirls who, at some point in the early 20th century in Australia, go for a picnic at Hanging Rock. 3 of them don't return, neither does one of their teachers. And the way this plays out, the ripple effect it has on their community, is wholly absorbing, more than a little disturbing, and altogether addictive. This is a fever dream of a novel. It's like a mirage. It absolutely shimmers. You just have to read it, lazy as that sounds. I don't know how else to pitch it. You'll never forget it, and it's short. So my Desert Island volume not just in terms of value for money, although that's a consideration, is this, The Complete Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. In one of Agatha Christie's Poirot novels, the obnoxious little detective says that he finds a lot of Sherlock Holmes plots to be utter rot, but the writing, he acknowledges, is exquisite. I don't think that's entirely fair. There's a reason that Sherlock Holmes is the foundation stone, as critics say, upon which crime fiction has been built and has been ever since his creation in the late 19th century. But even though the plots are sometimes silly, they are almost always memorable, and again, that writing is just glittering.